USC got another new dog.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you are downloading your podcast, the show is always free, and I will always appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Dalen McCutcheon, who? Yeah, he's the wide receiver who USC thought they were getting. He ended up committing to Florida State at the last second. Lincoln Riley, Dennis Simmons, saw Tanook Hines, said, you know what? We'll take you a couple days later. That's just fine. I mentioned his name a couple of times during the recruiting cycle. However, Tanook Hines was kind of sort of flying under the radar, right? USC offered the 4-star, he's from Houston, Texas, Dekaney High School. His name is Tanook. He goes by the nickname Nunu Hines. They gave him an offer back in December. And then ever since then, his recruitment was a little bit on the quiet side, at least as far as, chatter. Didn't hear a lot about his recruitment. And then he eventually took his official visit to USC in June. On yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, I said we'll see if Nunu, if he's going to pick USC or Notre Dame. And I mentioned that because prior to Hines taking his official visit to USC, Notre Dame was considered the leader in his recruitment. But again, get the kids on campus. That's the number one thing. So they got him on campus, and the official visit had a really nice, I guess we can call it a huge impact. In fact, per Scott Schrader over there on WeRSC.com, who talks to these guys on the regular, the impact of the USC official visit led Hines to choosing USC over Notre Dame and Texas. He made his announcement on Monday afternoon. If you're an everyday listener of this show, you should be. You knew that was coming down today. He's 5'11", 170 pounds, and he's considered the 329th overall best player in the class of 2025, according to the On3 industry ranking. And he also ranks as the number 52, the 52nd ranked wide receiver in the country, and the number 51st best prospect in the state of Texas. Now, he's not just a wide receiver. He's a really good athlete. And in fact, I would say he's an elite athlete. He has a reported 4.41 40-yard dash. Yeah, that's elite. 10.7 100 meters. That's not just fast. That's fast. That's elite. So again, he's a consensus 4-star. Not many people know his name because, I don't know, maybe the reason why he kind of flew under the radar is he only played in 7 games last season as a junior. That didn't stop, 30 of the best programs from saying, hey, you want to come play for us? Among that group of schools, that included, obviously, USC, Texas, Notre Dame. How about Texas A&M, LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, Michigan, Penn State, Tennessee, Wisconsin? I can go on. Those are the heavy hitters, right? Everybody you want an offer from. So again, rhetorical question. You can give me your answer. You know my answer. What's more impressive? Really? Are you being a 4-star? Or you know what? If you're sitting in your bedroom and you're looking at all these love letters that you got from all the power players, I know what's going to make a more indelible impression on me. I can look at the stars and say, hey, look, I got 4 stars. Or I could look at these letters that are signed by these particular head coaches. I know which one's going in my scrapbook. Just saying. Nunu is going to be another one of those. Look, we'll call him a human joystick. He's that type of player. And with his speed as well, yeah, he can take the top off of a defense. So He might not be Zachariah Branch. I mean, there's really only one of those born every generation anyways. However, I will let people know that Nunu is a fan of Reggie Bush. He's been watching highlights of Reggie on YouTube since he was a little kid. This is per Hines. Quote, USC has always been a dream for me because I used to watch Reggie Bush highlights. So it's always been a big school for me. Coach Sterling, Finney, and Coach Herb Frazier, his high school coaches, said I need to go check out USC. Then once I checked it out, I really liked this place. Hines also said he loved the way that Coach Riley and Coach Simmons, the way they connected with him. If you want to get the full story, go spend $1. Check out the VIP subscription special we got going over there on WeRC.com. Get the full scoop. So Tanook Hines, added to USC's 2025 recruiting class, now has a total of 14 commitments. The wide receiver class portion of it has 3 guys. Reminder, Corey Sims, Romero Eisen, and now you bring in Tanook Hines. You could say they've got 4 if you want to throw DeJuan Morris into the mix. But again, they're bringing him in. They list him as an athlete. So, I don't know. Is that it for this class as far as the wide receivers? Or are they going to make room for one more? I think they're probably going to save a spot for at least one more. The goal was 4 wide receivers. Again, you can list guys as athletes, but you're still figuring out where their best position is on the roster. I mentioned at the very top that he's a dog. He plays with that Coach Henderson type of attitude, right? What you want. And again, he's not the biggest guy. What I say he was 5'7". Let me scroll back up here just so I don't mess that up. Yeah, excuse me. 5'11", 170 pounds. So again, smaller, still on the smaller side. But again, it's not the size of the dog. It's the size of the heart inside the dog chasing that bone. So I want to ask the hard question. Okay. Let's transition from the commitment to USC still has some needs. And what happens if? Again, hard question, since we're talking about bones. How many of you seen the TV show Cheers? 80s, 90s sitcom. Sam Malone, Coach, Norm, Cliff, Carla. You know the crew, right? One episode of Cheers had Norm doing his customary entrance. And I think it was Cliff who asked. Someone at the bar asked the question, how's life treating you, Norm? And his response, typical Norm. It's a dog-eat-dog world and I'm wearing milk bone underwear. So, again, staying on with the dogs. Jeff Tedford, Fresno State Bulldogs head coach, is stepping down. He's stepping down due to health reasons. So I want to set that up. I want to preface it. This is why this is a little bit of a tricky situation for me. Look, number one, we want to wish Coach Tedford well. He's a good coach, right? If we're being honest, he probably should have taken Cal to the Rose Bowl back in 2004. But, Texas cried a little bit louder. In fact, their head coach, Mac Brown, voted down Cal, elevating Texas. Yeah, those types of games were played. Just to let everybody know, it's been since the Eisenhower administration since Cal played in the Rose Bowl, 1959. Anyways, getting back on the subject. Jeff Tedford stepping down, which means his players technically now have a 30-day window to explore other opportunities. I kind of feel bad for Corey Foreman, former USC Trojan, who just enrolled at Fresno State over the offseason. But look, USC needs interior help with experience on their defensive line, right? There's a dude named Gabriel Lightfoot who plays for Fresno State. He's from Southern California. He played at Centennial High School in the Inland Empire. 6'3", 300 pounds. He's a junior. As a sophomore for Fresno State, he started in 12 games. He missed one game against New Mexico with an injury. But last year, he had 20 tackles, 1.5 TFLs, 3 quarterback hurries, had a career high 4 tackles versus San Jose State, and had multiple tackles in 7 games. He's also an academic all-district and an academic all-Mountain West Conference guy. So he takes the classroom seriously as well. I kind of feel dirty talking about rating a roster because a coach can't coach anymore due to health. But then you have to ask, number one, again, he didn't even jump in the transfer portal during the spring. So it's not like he was available earlier. We're just a few weeks from fall camp opening. Does the player actually have the stones to take, just a stone cold business approaches and say, you know what? My head coach isn't here. Now I got to look out for myself. Sorry, teammates. I know we open fall camp in a few weeks. I went through PRPs with you, went through the grind, but now I'm going to explore. I mean, why would you do that now, right? Again, his head coach is stepping down. And I'm just throwing this out there, something to talk about. Would you take a player of Gabriel Lightfoot's caliber? Gavriel Lightfoot. Look him up. USC needs help. He could provide that depth that they need. Again, I feel a little bit dirty even talking about it. He's not in the portal. It wasn't in it. Will he now? I guess I would question. One thing I would question is, again, I understand it's a business decision. You got to do what's best for yourself. But this close to fall camp to say, I'm jumping overboard, that's a rough one. Tell me what you think. Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. And it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether in the speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Yep, you're like me. Fox is on. Then you're flipping over to ESPN because someone started yelling and you just wanted to break it up, right? You don't have to turn down the volume. You don't have to turn down that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel, and it's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the yelling. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, news, and opinions, and it's streaming for you 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV Channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I know Coach Riley had a really rough 2023. USC's team had a really rough 2023. USC fans, they suffered along with everybody else. And no one is to blame but Lincoln Riley, right? He'll admit that. He did admit that. And you know what? He's doing his best. Well, he did his best during the offseason to buy his way back into everyone's hearts with his defensive hires. Right? He went in and he got athletic director Jen Cohen to go on a shopping spree, starting in Westwood, right? If you're familiar with Southern California, Westwood, it ain't a cheap part of town. So we went out. Lincoln Riley bought Antonlynn away from UCLA. He went out and he bought Matt Entz, the head coach, away from North Dakota State, 2-time national championship, and says, I need you to be my linebacker coach. He went out and he went up and he outbid Georgia for Doug Belk, secondary coach. And we know that he went out and brought in Eric Henderson. So those guys are in the fold now. On paper, Coach Riley recruited 4 major, what we like to say, kabooms. Well, the big day, the Big 10, Big 18, the big conference media days, those start next week. The SEC, they're having theirs right now. And for some reason, that SEC shill, Paul Finebaum, he's got Lincoln Riley all over the brain. It's all he could talk about right now. The question is, why is he talking about Lincoln Riley during SEC days? Look, I'll keep the personal pejoratives to myself for a minute, but why is Finebaum saying this? Quote, the city of Los Angeles hates losers, and Lincoln Riley is a loser. He ran to LA after he found out Oklahoma was joining the SEC. He should have been fired last year. Close the quote. First of all, Paul's memory is as short as he is. I said for a minute. Look, right now, I feel like abusing his forehead like Benny Hill used to do it on the Discovery Channel. I mixed 2 metaphors in there, figured out. When USC hired Coach Riley away from Oklahoma, Paul said it was one of the greatest hires in the history of history. It's out there. Check the receipts. And now he's trying to support his new stance with these comments. He said that Lincoln Riley keeps going through defensive coordinators, plural. Huh? He just fired his first and only defensive coordinator he ever hired, Alex Grinch. So, -1, Paul. He said that he's afraid of the SEC. Basically saying, he said what he's saying is the big conference is easier. And he said it like a bald Delta Bravo would say it. Lincoln Riley knew USC was jumping into the big conference when he left Oklahoma. And reminder, Paul, you know who won the national championship last year? It wasn't the SEC. He also said that Lincoln Riley's best players are bailing on him, leaving USC. Like who? Name 3. Name 2. Name 1. I'm not talking about guys leaving early for the NFL. Best players? Really? It was just a really weird, unhinged rant. I'm not sure what kind of manifesto the SEC has been making Uncle Paulie read, memorize when it comes to USC. I mean, I don't know. Is he upset that Coach Riley wanted to live in a more sophisticated city in Los Angeles compared to Norman, Oklahoma? Look, I'm sure being king of the hillbillies is like really cool. It's a joke, Oklahoma fan. Smile, okay? Relax. But look, when you're the head coach at Oklahoma, you are a big fish in a small fish bowl. I don't know. Is Paul setting himself up for one of those media mea culpas when USC starts showing they can play defense this year? What's the motive behind this? I mean, let me remind Paulie Boy what he said verbatim after USC took Riley away from Oklahoma. This is what he said, word for word. That's what verbatim means, SEC fan. I'm kidding. It's a joke. Vanderbilt will remind you what verbatim means. Quote, and I do think this. He'll win a national championship at Southern Cal. And I don't know if there's anyone else out there that you can say that about. So this is a fantastic hire, as good as you can get. Close quote. That's what Uncle Paulie said after USC hired Lincoln Riley. Look, I know we all forget things we've said in our past. And I know it gets worse the older we get. But Paul, bless your heart. Because you're either a liar, you're suffering from dementia, or you're just looking for attention. And I think it's all of the above. Oh, by the way, when someone from the South says, bless your heart, that's not a compliment. It's a euphemism for God heard what you just said. You better apologize, because he can strike you down at any moment. Look, criticism for Lincoln Riley's coaching in 2023 is completely valid. I mean, I've been there. But did little Finebaum forget just how close Coach Riley almost got USC to the playoffs in year one after USC went 4-8 the year before? So one terrible year, which, by the way, ended with a winning record and a pretty nice bowl win against a good defense. Is that all of a sudden now what defines a young head coach? Look, I think I've been pretty fair and balanced with my criticism and praise for Coach Riley's accomplishments, what he's done. And look, he's got a really rough 2024 ahead of him, schedule-wise. So does the team. But Paul went full Riley derangement syndrome. I mean, just weird. I guess ESPN and Game Day probably won't be coming to LA anytime soon. And if they do, I would suggest, you know what, Paul, you might need one of those Pope Mobile type of protections. I'm not advocating anything, but, people like to throw tomatoes, rotten fruit, vegetables, hurl epithets. Maybe you won't hear them. I will say this, Paul Finebaum, SEC honk, USC versus LSU coming up soon. You better bet your ass he's going to have the focus on him if USC wins. I'm telling you, Paul, you better be wearing some steel underwear. Forget the milk bone stuff, because you're going to be getting an ass whooping. You're going to be taken behind the woodshed. Every single USC fan is taking receipts, and they're keeping them. All right, we're going to do a little bit of viewer mail, listener mail, questions, that type of stuff. I think I might have touched a nerve or two from yesterday's episode of Locked on USC. Not in a negative way, just getting people to kind of like, you know what? Yeah, Mark raised a really good point on how USC can do better. Because that was really about the show. Do better. I was talking about USC's bigger picture, their issue, and exploring some reasons why the staff is having some challenges closing the recruiting deals. I mentioned a couple of recruits, one current and another local one from a handful of years ago, CJ Stroud. I mentioned what he said when he took his official visit to USC. Hasn't gotten better. Excuse me. But the atmosphere and USC's game day, look, it's a contributing issue. We can bring up all the other things that are causing USC to have problems with recruiting, but their game day atmosphere is part of the problem. For example, AJ Star 89 had this to say: I agree on the in-game experience. The Coliseum is dead compared to 10 years ago. The school has destroyed the tailgate experience, and the season ticket game isn't much to brag about either. In my opinion, the fact that they aren't packing it every game in a town like LA should be seen as a failure by the school. We need to lower game cost and bring back the old tailgating experience and pack the stadium every game. He's right. Here's the challenge. NIL. And this season, I don't think anybody's really going to complain about USC's home games. It's a new paradigm, new conference, new teams coming in that you typically don't see. So I think USC is going to see better fan attendance. And look, we're dealing in a world where prices don't go down, they always go up. And when it comes to supply and demand, especially if USC starts doing well, you might want to get in on the demand now before the supply isn't available. Because when USC's winning, and remember, it's not a 92,000 seat Coliseum anymore, 77 and a half. This one came from Cam Life 1. Let me first off start off by saying I'm a huge SC fan. Been so since Rodney Peete and Eric Affolter. Now, when SC fans go to Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, even the likes of Purdue and Northwestern, there's a difference in tailgating and game day atmosphere. Not even close. SC has to step it up when you have 20,000 empty seats. Come on, SC. So look, it's not me. I'm not using hyperbole. These are the words of the fans. Anybody from USC, if you're watching this show, listen listen to what the Trojan family's saying. Listen to what I've been saying. I'm a conduit. I'm not making stuff up. And I know there are challenges, logistical. But if you need help, ask me. I'll help. This one comes from Gary Wells, 1984, on the wide receiver recruiting miss. Great show, Mark. By the way, if you want to get your comment read, always start off like that. I'm kidding. Anyways, great show, Mark. I believe with the receiver group only being in the sophomores, that's one of the reasons kids want to play right away, and our guys are going to be there at least 2 more years. Plus, we have some studs behind them. So I would think they're going to be more afraid of the competition. People that think we suck don't know football at all. Give this coaching staff a chance. Okay. I just want, number one, first, I want to make sure there's no ambiguity. I'm a huge fan of the staff. Okay. I may question things, but I'm not putting anyone on the hot seat. I'm not there. Not yet. And again, huge fan of the defensive staff he put together. I only question the way Lincoln Riley called games on offense last year. And I do that. I step lightly with that. I'm very specific about the run game. Dude knows more about offense than I will know in my entire lifetime. Now, I do agree with you halfway regarding the wide receiver group having some effect on it. Last week on an episode of Locked On USC, I mentioned that I think at least 2 of the 4 sophomores between Zachariah and Deuce and Mackay and Jacoby, at least 2 of those guys are going pro after the 2025 season. That's when they'll be eligible. So after 2025, and we're recruiting right now for 2025, USC needs wide receivers. So playing time will be available. And remember, they only brought in 1 in their 2024 cycle, Xavier Jordan. They need wide receivers. But I agree with pretty much everything else you said. From DJ QV6HK, Mark, good episode. I enjoy it when you talk about the why things are the way they are versus the fodder. Do you think it's a closing problem? Like, do ace recruiters matter anymore? Here's my answer to that, DJ. You still need the guys who can sell ice to Eskimos, right? But when it comes to closing the deal, let me put it this way. Who is the last person you see when you buy a car? The person who hands you the keys after you sign the paperwork. That's right. The finance person, not the person who sold you the car. So if you catch what I'm selling, that's where we're at right now. And that segues into these next couple. Alan Maddox, he made a comment regarding USC's NIL. He said there's too many chefs in the kitchen. That was the gist of his comment. And I agree. And I said as much myself on a previous episode when all of a sudden Dave Emmerich became the main villain in this whole saga. What the issue is there's a couple of NIL collectives competing against each other, and it's confusing the landscape. Okay? Let me reemphasize this again. Dave Emmerich is not the one closing the deals with NIL. He is a messenger, period. Anyways, a Miami Hurricanes fan, Aaron Frazier 7873, who listens to this show, he responded to Alan. This is what he said. No, USC actually has a good NIL program. I'm a Miami fan. We aren't the richest NIL. We don't pay the most or the least. However, Miami pays what it says it's going to pay. Also, we don't have state income tax here in Florida. I heard USC has too many chiefs trying to run NIL. You have USC business alums and boosters. You have alums in Hollywood who are producers, directors, presidents, actors, etc. There's no way USC should not be top 5 in the nation. He's right. Aaron Frazier is right. And he brought up the taxes. I've mentioned that before as well. So there's a little bit of nuance involved. Okay. Oh my gosh, we're going to do more viewer, listeners, questions, comments. I'll do that again. Maybe I'll do that at the end of the week. I didn't realize how far we are into the show right now. So I just wanted to kind of touch on a few things that have been brought up recently. Let you know what the fans are thinking as well. A lot of times we agree, sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding and you just need some clarification. Like there was someone who made a comment. They heard what I said in the first segment of the show and they came to a conclusion based on that. Had they finished and listened through the second segment, because based on their answer, I don't think they did, they would have heard me say exactly what their conclusion was. USC needs to win games, and that will solve the majority of their problems. All right, that's it for this episode of Locked On USC. I'll be back with another episode tomorrow. That's what we do 5 times a week. See if I have some recruiting info. I'll definitely have some info about the team. And I'm sure I'll have a nice little button topic we can talk about when it comes to Coach Riley and the staff. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.